Good morning. Good morning. This is Penny Wilson. Welcome to our first episode of the Hero's Journey podcast. Have you ever wished that there was a map that you could follow, that you could trust, that would help you to know your stages of growth along your journey? For years, I have been fascinated with the pattern of the hero's journey. I'm just a person that loves to find patterns because they are so amazing, because it's like a picture in a picture that you haven't ever seen before. You know, that one with the lady's face. And then all of a sudden somebody tells you that that is a different picture of an old woman, right? Have you ever seen that one? I remember seeing that in when I was 5 or 7 years old and being so amazed with the idea of you can see two different things in the same picture. So I seriously, for my whole life, have had this fascination with patterns and seeing pictures in pictures. And I believe that life is like a puzzle. And this discovery of the hero's journey is one of those things that amazes me and shows me the pattern of the map of my life that can actually help me to know where I am on my journey. I'm so excited lately because I've been discovering, for me and the people that I work with, women mompreneurs, there are 3 different stages of growth. And I'm going to be sharing more with you along that journey to help you to see where you are on your journey. But today, what I want to do and what I am so excited to do is to read for you the actual story of the Dream Giver. So this is an awesome book I read several years ago. It's by Bruce Wilkinson. And it's going to be about an hour-long reading. And if you don't have time to listen to the whole thing, just, batch it up into chunks. Maybe I'll even do that with the recording and post it on as in chunks. So it's so amazing to help you to realize where you are on your journey. As I've been working with mompreneurs and women that are struggling along their path, there's one lady, Tracy, I've been working with, and she is in the first stage of her journey. She needs this butterfly cocoon stage where she can be safe, to be in this calm, quiet place and really do some inner work, some inner discovery to find out what is going on inside of herself. I remember being there myself after my 3rd divorce. Yes, I've been divorced 3 times. Part of my story, amazing. But Tracy just realized that she needed this time to be by herself to really find that inner work and discovery. So I just lost my train of thought as to where I was going with that, but it's amazing. My point here is for you to find out where you are on your journey. In the hero's journey, there's 12 different points, depending on who you, in the hero's journey, there's 12 different points, depending on who you learn from, the pattern. But you'll see in this book that it shows you each different step. And my goal for you, or my desire for you, is that you will be able to discover where you are on your journey, to find out if you're still in that place of before you discover your call, or if you're facing a wall of fear. So I love this story because it's a short parable, about an hour long, and it's going to truly help you to see where you are on your journey. And if you are, commenting anywhere, wherever we end up posting this on social, I'd love to know where you are on your journey and where you identify in this story. So without further ado, I am going to begin the reading of this story, and hopefully my recording holds out. It says I have a limit of 6 hours on my reading platform, so hopefully that's true. All right. This is The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson, read by Penny Wilson. And I don't know if I need to read the preface. I'm going to go ahead and skip that. The Parable of the Dream Giver. Ordinary embraces his big dream. Not long ago and not far away, a nobody named Ordinary lived in the land of familiar. And just so you know, sometimes I change words. If you happen to be following along, I just say what comes through my head as I'm reading. So sorry. Okay. Every day was pretty much the same for Ordinary. In the morning, he got up and went to his usual job. And some of these words are capitalized. So if you're listening, just notice ordinary, land of familiar, usual job, nobody's best friend. Those things are capitalized. In the morning, he got up and went to his usual job. After work, he ate almost the same dinner he'd eaten the evening before. Then he sat at his recliner and watched the box that mesmerized most nobodies on most nights. Sometimes Best Friend came over to join Ordinary in front of the box. Sometimes Ordinary went to his parents' house and they watched together. For the most part, not much happened in Familiar that hadn't happened before. Ordinary thought he was content. He found the routines reliable. He blended in with the crowd. And mostly, he wanted only what he had. Until the day Ordinary noticed a small, nagging feeling that something big was missing from his life. Or maybe the feeling was that he was missing from something big. He wasn't sure. The feeling grew. And even though nobodies in Familiar didn't generally expect the unexpected, Ordinary began to wish for it. So I just want to pause here for a second and notice what longings you notice in your life. If you listen to your heart, there are longings of who you can become, of things that you want to do. And if you pay attention to those longings, they will lead you in the direction of your promised land, as you'll learn in this story. Continuing on, time passed. Then one morning, Ordinary woke up with these words echoing in his mind. What you're missing, you already have. Could it be? Ordinary looked and looked, and then he discovered that in a small corner of his heart lay a big dream. The big dream told him that he, a nobody, was made to be a somebody and destined to achieve great things. Jumping out of bed, Ordinary discovered something else. A long white feather resting on the sill of his window. Where did it come from? What did it mean? With a jolt of excitement, Ordinary decided he'd been visited by the dream giver. Now Ordinary had heard rumors of various nobodies in Familiar waking up to a big dream, but he'd never imagined that he could be the one, that it could happen to him. He rushed to get dressed, his big dream beating brightly in his chest. He couldn't wait to get to his usual job and tell Best Friend the news. But on his way to work, Ordinary realized he had a problem. His big dream was way too big for an ordinary person like him. He would be embarrassed to tell anyone. Even Best Friend would probably laugh. Still, Ordinary was too excited to keep his dream to himself. As soon as he saw Best Friend, he blurted out the news. The dream giver gave me a big dream. I was made to be a somebody and destined to achieve great things. Best Friend looked surprised, but he didn't laugh. That's very big, he said. But if I were you, I wouldn't talk about this dream of yours too much. Nobody's around here might take you for a fool. Ordinary didn't want to look like a fool, so after that, he kept his big dream to himself. And just so you know, I tend to cry when I read this story, so just bear with me. Day after day, Ordinary showed up at his usual job, but while he worked, he thought about his dream. He thought about how wonderful it would be to do what he loved to do instead of just dreaming about it. Ordinary's longing for his big dream grew and grew until finally he realized that he'd never be happy unless he could pursue it. Why did the dream giver not make it possible? If the dream giver didn't, how could Ordinary ever leave Familiar? He had payments and expenses. He had regular duties. A lot of nobodies counted on him for a lot of things. Ordinary felt completely stuck. Time passed, but nothing happened. He began to hate his usual job. This isn't what I was made to do, he said to himself. I just know it. After a while, he began to worry that maybe he hadn't received a big dream after all. Maybe He just made it all up, and he grew sadder and sadder by the day. One evening after work, Ordinary went to his parents to watch the box, but their box was broken, so the house was very quiet. It was even more quiet because his mother was out shopping at Familiar Foods. In the quietness, Ordinary started to think about his dream again. He looked over at his father sitting at his recliner, staring at a single page of Nobody's News. Maybe he could help. "Father," said Ordinary, "I'm growing sadder and sadder by the day. I don't like my usual job anymore. In fact, I think I hate it." Father looked up. "That's terrible," he said. "What happened?" Before he could stop himself, Ordinary started talking about the dream giver and about his big dream. "I was made to be a somebody and achieve great things," he said. And then he told his father the name of his dream. And he spoke. As he spoke, his voice trembled. He was sure that his father would laugh or call him a fool, but he didn't. "I'm not surprised to hear you say these things," he said. "You're not?" said Ordinary. "No," his father said. "You've had that dream ever since you were little. Don't you remember? You used to build that dream in the sticks and the muds in front of this very house." Then Ordinary did remember. He'd always had this dream. It was what he had always wanted to do, and what he'd always thought he'd be good at doing. His eyes filled with tears. "Father," he said, "I think I was born to do this." Ordinary and his father sat together quietly. His father seemed to be remembering something too. After a while, he asked, "When you woke up to your big dream, son, did you happen to find a feather?" Ordinary was shocked. "How did you know?" he asked. "A long time ago, I woke up to a big dream too," his father said. "And it came along with a white feather. It was a wonderful dream. I kept the feather on my windowsill while I waited for a chance to pursue it. I waited and waited, but it never seemed possible. One day, I noticed the feather had turned to dust." Of all of the saddest words Ordinary had ever heard, these were the saddest. Before he left that night, his father hugged him. "Don't make the same mistake I did, son," he said. "You don't have to stay a nobody. You can be a dreamer." When Ordinary got home, he went straight to the window and picked up the long white feather. He turned it over and over in his hands. He thought about his father and the dream he had left behind. Then he had a very surprising idea. Could it be that maybe the dream giver gave every nobody a dream, but only some embraced their dreams? Even fewer pursued them. Even fewer pursued them. The more he thought about it, the more he thought it had to be true. The one thing Ordinary did know for sure, he didn't want to repeat his father's mistake. He wouldn't waste another day waiting for his dream to seem possible. He would find a way to pursue it. Time passed. Ordinary worked hard on his plan to begin his dream. He made hard choices. He made difficult changes. He even made big sacrifices. Finally, one day, he was ready. Ordinary ran all the way to his usual job, his big dream pounding in his chest. As soon as he saw Best Friend, Ordinary blurted out the news. "The big dream I told you about. I've decided to pursue it." Best Friend looked concerned. "You know, as well as I do, that nobodies who pursue dreams leave familiar," he said. "They set off like fools into the unknown in search of the place where—" Yes, I know," Ordinary broke in, "and I can't wait to get started." "But Ordinary, that journey is anything but sensible or safe. Why leave familiar? It's so comfortable here. And besides, you've always lived here. I've thought about that too, said Ordinary, but my big dream is too important and too wonderful to miss. Best Friend shook his head. You're not going to be. So, you're going to become a dreamer, he said. I am a dreamer, said Ordinary. Today, I'm going to tell my boss that I'm leaving my usual job. Tomorrow, I begin my journey. Hey, Best Friend, added Ordinary eagerly. You can have my recliner and my box. And with that, Ordinary walked away, humming a tune he had never hummed before. End of chapter 1. I just want to add a comment really quickly in this last part of Best Friend. And just think about how this is comparable to what our subconscious mind does as we attempt to pursue something new. Our subconscious mind wants to keep us safe. That's its job, to keep us alive. But in order to pursue the thing that we have in our heart, we have to go through this wall of fear, which is in the next chapter. So excited to read that to you next. I'm going to stop the recording here and see you on the other side.